everyone. We'd like to call to order this special meeting of the Summers County Board of Education, May 28th, 2024 at 5 p.m. Let the minutes reflect that all board members are present. And we have the item 2, approval of agenda and adjustments. I'll make a motion that we approve the agenda.
Second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we approve the agenda for this special meeting. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote, the agenda has been approved. Item 3, the budget hearing.
In your packets, each one of you will have, starts with this. That's actually the second page. The one right behind that is the first page. It got stapled wrong. That's an overview of the budget for the next year. I kind of broke it down by salaries and benefits because that's by far our biggest expense as a county, which that's normal. Most counties spend the majority of their budget on salaries and benefits. As you can see in our county fund, the salaries and benefits take up over 72% of the budget. And then the reserve that we budgeted to keep is about 1.6 million. I will point out that last year's budget only budgeted to keep a 1 million reserve, and I think we're going to close out at about 2.4 million in a reserve, which is your carryover. So just because it says 1.5, 1.6, that doesn't necessarily mean, well, you're in. As long as we're real strict on the budget and don't have any major expenses, that should at least stay the same or grow a little bit. The only thing is now that we're out of the ARP money, there are several salaries that will have to be moved back into the county funds. So some of that contingency that we've had for the last few years will cover some of those salaries. And those are a couple of teaching positions, custodian positions, some finance positions. The Fund 61, that's your special revenue. Those are all grants and that's all that step 7B will be. All of those have specific fund or specific things you have to spend money on. So they're very restricted as to what you can do. About 54% of that is to salaries. There's a reserve there, but that's just because as the year goes, that's when the principals and stuff will get together and say what they need, like for your CSI funds. As the year goes, that's when they know what they need, and then that'll come out of that money. So that's not actually a carryover. That'll be spent because it has to be spent from year to year because the funds end each year. And then Fund 51 is the building fund. That's the SBA funds. That's approximately what we'll have remaining on this building project, and all of that will have to be spent towards the building project. So that's a pretty simple, and it might be a little bit more than that at the end of the year. That was just an estimate of where we should be June 30th. And the same for 71. That is with the remaining SRF money. That's an estimate of where we'll be on June 30th. It might be more than that. It might be less than that. But all of that has to be spent from before September 30th. So there shouldn't be a whole lot of that left. We might be at 900,000, but then I will point out the majority of that is the Hinton area project. So it's already allocated. It's just not technically spent yet.
But I'm sorry, would you say the source of Fund 71?
That's the ESSER funds, the COVID funding.
Gotcha.
So that's just the remainder of those COVID funds. And they have very specific things you can spend it on as well. So most of that is already allocated.
How much of this is not allocated? Or how much of it is?
Probably 75% of it is allocated. The two things that we don't know the exact amount will be summer school and the summer teacher academy, because those will have salaries attached to them. Both of those will all come out of the COVID fund. So once that's over in August, we can get some hard numbers to see the exact remainder of what's left of the COVID money to spend it prior to that June or to that September 30th cutoff. But we're dwindling down. We should be fine to spend it all appropriately by the cutoff date.
And the Fund 51, that 2.9 for building fund, did you say it had to be spent by June 30th or?
No, that's the estimated
Estimate.
balance for
Okay.
June 30th of the money that we got from the SBA for the building project. So all of that is SBA funds.
That started out for around 12 million, but we have about 90% of that building done. I know it doesn't seem like it, but when you look at all the materials that go into that building, now we're looking at finishing up with labor. So, that's what that money's from.
So that's just an overview of the amounts for each one. There's a few things I wanted to point out in each category. Our heavy costs are, like I said, salaries, which that's normal for any educational system. Salaries should be most of your budget. Special education expenses have went up over the whole state. And that's just, we have to meet with an IEPs. Those aren't negotiables. Those are just funds we have to come up with to meet those. There are some IDEA funds and grants to cover some of that, but there's some stuff you have to pay for out of county. So you have to pay at least as much as you're getting funded out of county funds for special education. That's just one of the rules to get special education funding.
So in short, special ed funds have to be matched with county funds.
Yes, within a certain percentage, but it's got to be pretty close, yes. But the county funds most of the staff positions that have to do with special education, so your teachers, your aides. So the match comes from that. So there's not a whole lot of extra we have to do to meet that requirement other than just staffing. Of course, transportation costs have went up tremendously over the last few years just because the cost of transportation in general has went up. The insurance cost with REM went up several $1,000s. That's seen across the state. It'll probably go up again once we get the building finished because that will raise our property value. So our enrollment has decreased. All of you guys are aware of that. We're funded at the 1,400 level. So our state aid formula will stay the same. We're still a few positions over. So over the next few years, we do need to look at consolidating a few things as people leave. We're not terribly far over, but we do need to look at that every time there's a chance to reduce down a little bit.
Now, how many people are we over?
I think we're over about 4 on professional and about 8 on service, but the state is coming up with a different number. Within the next couple months, they're supposed to sit down with me and do an in-depth analysis of where we're at, because a lot of it has to do with the FTE, not the actual position. So it's we're paying, like if it's an extended contract or if they're getting over the minimum state allowance. So once I sit down with the state and do that, I can get you actual numbers. I can do a presentation on that once that's done, but we're not too far over. We knew that though, going into this, and those are some of those positions that I said we were aware that we would use our contingency to cover. And that was just a choice that we made, to keep staffing instead of cutting down positions that we thought were needed in the county. So we're doing a few of those internally as people leave anyways. So we'll see some of those throughout this year. Every time a new charter school is approved, changes our funding. So the funding preliminaries went out mid-April. It has changed 4 times since then because of charter schools. So every time a new charter school gets approved at the state level, it changes our funding. So what's in here is the comps that we have at the time. If another charter school is approved, that will change our state funding throughout the year, and they just readjust it. So it could go down some more between now and the end of the school year.
This school year,
Yeah.
or the fiscal year,
Yes.
this year, 24.
So they reduce it at the time that the charter school is approved. So even though this is what everybody bases their budget on, their state formula, if a new charter school is open next month, that money will be reallocated according to what the charter school is on.
But once we get to July 1, what's allocated to us, will it change? Could it still
It can still
change?
change.
Okay.
It can change anytime a new charter school is accepted. So that's why the budget is kind of like a flowing working point. Every time a change like that happens, we have to adjust the budget and move on. Now, this past year, there wasn't that many charter schools. So hopefully, we'll stay the same. I do know of 2 that are trying right now, so there's a possibility for a couple more. It also depends on where they're at and where the kids are enrolled in, if it even affects us. The latest one to get approved did not affect us at all because it was in the northern part of the state and there would be no kids from here going there. So all of that is just things to keep in mind as we're talking about a budget. The salaries, of course, the state approved another 5% increase, so that increased all the salaries. That did bump up the state minimum formula. But as I said again, people are paid based off their FTE, which is if they have an extended contract or anything like that, the state aid formula doesn't cover for that. So for example, our 240 employees, those 40 days aren't necessarily covered under the state aid formula, or our secretaries, which are 2 or 4, or principals or anything like that. It's all based on a 200-day contract for this state aid amount that we give. So there was also an increase in PEIA, the county portion and the employee portion. The county portion went up another approximately $1,500 per employee. Those are covered in state aid formula for the positions funded. The thing that hurts us sometimes is when you have 2 half-time positions and they both have insurance, the state only pays for one of them because it's combined into one full-time position. So those are all things you have to keep in mind when you're doing staffing. And then the other big change was, the third grade success act that keeps adding aides. So we added the second grade aides for this next year, and then the next year will be third grade. Those are the major changes. Are there any questions?
So how does this year's budget compare to last year's budget?
It's pretty much a mirror. So 90% of our budget is hard cost. They're like electricity. Our electricity is $500,000 for the county. So those are actual cost. And then anything additional like PD and stuff, I just mirrored what was in the budget last year on the county level. We didn't take into consideration what we spent COVID money on because those were additional funds. So anything that was budgeted in the county last year, next year's budget will mirror this year's budget. And then here's the full budget. This will be published on our website once it's approved by the state with the package you have. That's what will be published in the paper. So it breaks it down by expenses for instruction, supporting services, food service, and so on. It breaks it down into categories. So this is the portion that is required to be published in the paper, and it will be published the next time as soon as it's approved by you guys.
This page. Estimated beginning balance is 2.4.
That's our estimated carryover from this year to next year.
Okay, estimated budgetary reserves, second to the bottom line. Is that what we're predicting it being at the end of next year?
That's what we're predicting to be at the end of next year, but keep in mind that we only predicted to be at 1 million at the end of this year, and we're at 2.4.
We still had COVID funding
We did.
to help us save that
We
money
did.
though.
I don't know that we'll get to 2.4 at the end of next year. I don't know that we'll maintain that. I'd say we probably will eat into that some. But we've already talked at the district level, we're gonna have to cut back on overtime. Any extra expenses that we really can cut back on, it's going to be a lot stricter this year than it was, or this coming year than it was this year, just because the funding isn't available. So we'll do everything we can to maintain that balance as long as possible. But, we knew it was coming. We knew that contingency was going to hold us from a while.
And as strict as the state is, it shocks me that you can budget more than what you're bringing in. Basically that's what we're saying we're doing, right? You follow me?
I'm sorry. I'm
Just,
So the top
total
part-
estimated revenues is 15,816. It just looks to me like total estimated expenditures would need to come in under that.
Well,
To
So
balance the
that's
budget.
because you're eating into your contingency. So our contingency is the 2.4, so the carryover, the estimated expenses are,
I guess what I'm getting at is if we would pattern ourselves like that every year, in 5 years we're broke, and that's just,
that's why.
we can't do that.
So that's why I pointed out that we are over formula by some, so every chance we get, we need to look at those costs. We also need to look at bringing our overhead down. One of our overheads that we could bring down pretty easily is, the middle school building that we're still paying power for every month. So there are some stuff like that where we can look at, and we need to look at immediately to bring those costs down. But as far as like electricity for the school, internet, those are hard costs. We don't have a whole lot we can do with those.
The other thing, Mr. Brogan, is the state's looking at changing the formula of 1,400 students down to 1,200. So if you look at that, that would really put the hurt on this county when we don't have those numbers anymore.
That has been discussed. It hasn't passed. If it does pass, it will hurt us tremendously. That's, 20-ish positions that are funded with those extra 200 students. But we'll see. I mean, it's been on the table for the last several years and it hasn't passed yet, so we'll just have to wait and see if that happens or not.
And I don't know where it can happen. I haven't been consulted on anything in this budget, but spending more than you're bringing in, that's just pretty elementary. We can't sustain that very long at all, and we need to make some, whatever they are, we're gonna have to make some serious changes. Like you said, immediately.
So I do 100% agree with you. And anytime we can make cuts throughout the year, we will on expenditures or on staffing. I will reiterate, we were only budgeted for $1 million carryover for this year. We're ending at 2.4. So that number is more conservative than I think we would be. We over budgeted for staffing and substitutes last year. We did the same thing for this coming year. Hopefully we can continue those trends and not actually use the full budget on those things. But that's just something that's not really in our control a whole lot. It just depends from year to year what our, substitute rates and stuff are. But I don't disagree. There's gotta be some cuts.
Do you have anything else?
I don't have anything else.
Any other questions? Comments? All right, we have before us the budget for the 24-25 school year. Do I have a motion?
Mr. Orwell, do you have any ideas? I mean, it drives me crazy to think that we're going to spend at least $200,000 more dollars than what we're bringing in. As far as money saving ideas, I mean,
Any of them that
as
you-
far as being a board member and making this decision, it's a bad one. I mean, it just is.
We're
If you-
stewards, so.
If you look at any position in the school, there's always something that's connected to some entity that's connected to a kid. And so whatever you look at cutting, it's gonna affect, and that's the hardest decision is, this is not robots and just, we're not making, a piece of equipment here. We're talking about kids' education. So we would have to seriously have a good work session and give you the whole list of everything in school. And then as soon as the decision's made, if you have people in your ear saying you can't get rid of this, then there's gonna be another group, and it's not an easy thing because that's where we're at right now. And we try to pass a levy. I don't know what else to do. other
Yeah,
than
that's the
say,
thing. Levy wouldn't even help none of this.
Well, it would
Very
help,
little.
it would help quite a bit though, because some of the stuff we're paying for, the county can't continue to do. We'll have to make cuts. Like we can't afford 2 school resource officers, the community and schools. You can't do split classrooms anymore. You're gonna have to look at athletics. Any extracurriculars will be on the chopping block. We did add middle school softball, middle school baseball. I'm just using it as an example. I'm not saying to cut them, but they all have away games. We don't have home. So that hurts the budget there because you have to transport them. But if you did have a home game, you have to pay for the umps and people to run that too. So no matter how you look at it, it's going to affect kids, and it's making a better bad decision sometimes because 80% of the budget is paid for humans to teach humans. I mean, that's what you're at. 20% of the budget is everything else, and that's where you could look first, but you can't skimp on the electric bill. But we could look at that whole block and Hinton there to see if what we want to do with that to unload that property, because that's $70,000 right there to pay for that building in a year. But it's our responsibility. All the school districts are going through this right now. Look at the positive. We have a 2.4 million carryover. I don't know.
Well, as I said, we had COVID funding and that boosted that. Thank God for COVID money, but now we gotta be best stewards we possibly can be with what's left. I said I wasn't gonna do this, but I'll make a motion that we accept this budget as presented. We gotta seriously look at this thing closely soon.
Motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mrs. Farley to approve the budget as presented. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the budget has been approved. Mr. McBride.
Right, make a motion, we adjourn. Time is 5:22.
All right. Few minutes late, but we'll go ahead and just roll right on into the next meeting. We'll call to order the Summers County Board of Education regular meeting, May 28th, 2024. Ask Mr. Larry Cochran if he would to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those who aren't aware, Mr. Cochran has led our Patriot team for some time now, and I felt it was appropriate to ask him to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So, Item 3, approval of agenda and adjustments.
Make a motion that we pay RT Rogers separately in the bills.
Second. Have a motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we pay RT Rogers separately. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? But the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that we will pay RT Rogers separately in the bills. Any other adjustments?
Make a motion that we accept the agenda as read with the aforementioned adjustment.
I'll second that. Motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by myself. To accept the agenda as read with the aforementioned adjustments. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? But the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the agenda has been approved as read. We have item 4, pause for applause. The first one we have is for Game Changer. That's going to be Sadie Richmond and Annie Elkins.
Do we have you two ladies come up here and talk a little bit about Game Changer? These two young ladies will be in a video that'll be a regional video made by Game Changers. And these two are going to be featured in this video. They'll be West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky is where this video will be played. And we have two students from our school district that will be represented in that video. But girls, can you tell them a little bit more about Game Changers and the video you're going to be in? Don't jump in at once now.
Game Changers is a drug prevention program that encourages living a healthy lifestyle.
Did you guys tell them what you did with the video that you were involved in, and you were there with other students in the state of West Virginia? Is that correct?
Yeah.
And how many were chosen to be in this video? Do you guys know that answer at all?
I think 8.
And you were 2 of 8 that got to be in it in this state? Can you talk a little bit about the video? Because from what I understood, from what I've heard from my intel was they had you run through an obstacle course and then weight you down and have you go through it again?
Yeah, the second part wasn't fun.
Can you, well then, how about you walk us through that, please?
Yeah, so we had to do like this big like obstacle course thing. And the first time we just went through it without anything on. And then the second time they put like these big like ankle weights and life jackets and like headgear and all this like heavy stuff on you. And you had to go through that. So it would like resemble what it was like going through an addiction.
All right, you get to talk next.
Where did you go to for the obstacle course?
Larkspur.
Larkspur. All right.
Sadie, if you pinch her, I bet she'll yell ouch.
Safe, right?
Yeah.
Was it a fun experience?
So their moms are both here, and what was pretty cool is I got to go to a Game Changer event, and there was a speaker there that most people in this state know, Jennifer Gardner. She did a video and a shout out to these two young ladies, so that was pretty cool. And I sent it to their moms, and I think one mom said they're gonna flip out when they wake up. Is that what you said, Miss Richards? So they got to get a video of Miss Garner to say congratulations, girls. So I was pretty happy that our girls are representing the state of West Virginia, and then they'll be representing 3 states about Game Changers. Next month, Kim Legg will be here. She's gonna bring some people from Game Changers that work in our school system, give you guys a full-blown what has happened this year with the program. But can you girls talk a little bit about what you've done in your school with Game Changer at all to help the board understand from a student's perspective what you're doing with it?
I know they came for like a week and they did these like lessons about like living healthy and friendships and not doing drugs. Like, you would come during the music time and we would play games.
Do you guys have any questions for them?
Sounds to me like you guys are movie stars. We need to talk about autographs.
Is this something you would like to continue to do?
So what was your reaction when you found out about Jennifer Gardner?
I was,
Or did you flip out? Okay, just checking.
Now, one of you's going to 6th grade, one's going to 5th next year? Okay. So which is going which?
she's going to 5th.
You're going to 5th, and you'll be able to do this as a leader and talk it next year? I'm gonna have your mom and dad. You've never been this quiet before. Sadie, you're gonna help out in the middle school next year? Okay.
Well, thank you for representing our county, and I'm glad you got the experience. Hope you have fun with it.
Good job, girl.
Yeah.
That's the quietest I've ever had.
All right, the next one we have is our Golden Horseshoe winners.
We have 2 students that did really well, and I'll let them talk, is Annalyn Lilly and Bailey Richmond. Are you the only one here, Miss Lilly? Or is Annalyn? Well, then you get to come up and tell the board about your experience. Did you get a perfect score? You don't know?
I don't know.
Can you tell a little bit about the golden horseshoe?
So we have a writing part that we do prior, so you go in a class, you have a prompt, and you get to write one sheet of paper. And my prompt was one famous West Virginian who inspired me and why. And I wrote about, this was like in March. Can't remember, but then we take the test at the end of the year, and I think it has 50 questions on it. And they have a website with, I think, 210 question quizzes that you can take before. And they have some of the questions that you can get on the test. So I took some of the practice quizzes and it helped me on the test. So next have some of the answers.
So you didn't write about your mom or dad, a famous
No.
West Virginian?
Do you know who, was the creator of Mother's Day?
Wasn't her name Anne?
Jarvis, yeah. When I did the Golden Horseshoe in 8th grade a million years ago, we, all the winners had to dress as the character they wrote about, and that's who I had to dress as.
So if my memory serves me correct, your sister also won the Golden Horseshoe.
Yes, she did.
It didn't work out that way for me. My sister won it, but I did not. So I just want to know if there's a legacy with your family. Did your mom or dad win the Golden Horseshoe?
I don't know if mom and dad did, but I know that my grandma's dad did a couple
All
years
right.
ago.
Nice.
Very nice. Cool.
Well, we're real proud of you and also, Ms. Richmond, and we just love to be able to support and celebrate kids' accolades. You're represented us well as the two girls here tonight. So congratulations and thanks for your accomplishment. We are proud of you. And you guys don't have to stay. There's no extra credit. If you guys want to go enjoy your summer, get out now.
All right, item 5, we have public comment. We have one, Mr. Larry Cochran.
For the opportunity to come and speak with you. I began my journey with Summers County in 2010. And I owe a great deal of thanks to Jay McBride because I had not had public employment in 15 years, and I went to the bus garage. And Jay reached out and helped me get a CDL license to be able to drive a school bus. And I became a bus operator, a substitute bus operator that fall when school started. And I sure appreciate you giving me the opportunity, Jay. Thank you for that. And I remember the first route I took, Ron had an accident, and so that evening I got his bus route. Jay told me to come to the high school, and there was a teenage girl here that told me every place I needed to go. And so I got her on the bus. She was very nice, introduced herself to me. She took me to the middle school, and then she took me out to 4-H Camp Road. We went right to her house, and she says, well, Mr. Cochran, this lady here, this little girl here will tell you the rest of the way to go. She got off the bus, and I says, where do you go? She says, I don't know. She usually gets off last. So that began my journey. I got caught with that one. But I thank you, Jay, for doing that. I thank you for Vicki Heinerman for giving me that opportunity. Over the years, Kim Rhodes was a great help to me during those years. And of course, Ms. Knott is here, worked with her at the board office. And the kitchen staff for every school for 10 years, I took food. And I'd like to thank them because they helped make me what I am today. So I thank the various kitchen staff. And then I thank Mr. Warble for rifting me. That may sound strange. It was sometimes a closed door, a door has to close before another one opens. And so Marcia called me and told me about the communities and schools job. I had no idea. Matter of fact, I didn't even know how to get on the county website. So I didn't know anything about that. So I thank her for helping me do that. And I'm thankful for Mrs. Jones, who has been a real leader for us at Communities in Schools and helping us move forward. And then Mrs. Gum at the elementary school, I'm thankful for Sonia Merle that has been very helpful as a counselor there at the school, for Joy and Susie and Stan, who've been my cohorts here in Communities in Schools. And we work together as a team. I'm thankful for them. Had they not helped me with the technology part of this, I would have finished up in the first couple of months. But they helped me get ahead on that. And I can email now and I can do all that, you know, so those are very helpful things to me. I'm thankful for Chad Madden. Chad, I've known him for a long time. He helped me years before I ever got here with, when he was with the health department and helping me with getting my boys' school going, and I thank him for that. And then everything he's done here at the school, his care for the kids and getting them to school and working with the parents. I'm thankful for that. And there's many people in this community. You know, I'm able to resource things for families. The longer I'm doing this, the less it comes from me, but it comes from others. And people want to know what they're giving is going for what they intended. And so I think that's the help that they've been to us. I'm thankful for many people in the community have given me cars and appliances. Some of you have given appliances to families, and we've been able to help those families because of the community helping us. And I'm just so thankful for being a part of this. One of the things that we do with the Patriot team in the morning, we go out and put up the flag. We talk about things to be thankful for, grateful for. I've taught them each one of your names, and so that they can be thankful for our board and know who is leading us in this county. So thank you for being a solid board and leading to the best of your ability. It is a very tough position because any decision you make, there's somebody against it. And so that's why you get the big bucks and have a tough job. So, but anyway, my future, I'm not wanting to quit on Summers County. I want to continue as a sub for Communities in Schools so that I can be a community contact. Folks can reach out to me, the teachers or whoever, the Communities in Schools folks, the new person takes my job. I still have the same resources available, and all that's a phone call away. They can say, you know, so-and-so needs furniture, I'll take it to their house. And so I still want to be that. I've had a lot of interest since we've been to the state superintendent's meeting. I had calls from other counties that want to know, tell me about your Patriot team and what do we need to get one started? And so I believe the Lord has used that to help me take a next step with that. I'd like to be able here in this county have a Patriot team in every school. We'd call it a club at that point, and I could go as a sub, not to get paid for that, of course, but to be able to go into the schools, work with the kids, and do a Patriot team in each school. I just formed a Patriot team at my church. On Memorial Sunday, we had 2 Patriot teams. I set up just like we do here at the school, and I had 2 teams folding the flag at one time. It was very moving service. The kids loved it and learned a lot about the flag. So I'd like to do that in every school in Summers County. Also, I'd like to take that out of Summers County. And I have several teachers in our church, and they expressed interest in getting it in their schools. So it's not going to be just one person doing it, but I'll be able to train folks to go and teach kids about the flag and about being patriotic. And I believe that's very important at the condition that our country is in today. I changed, and I wish I'd have done a long time ago. I started with our flag facts, and when they introduce themselves, I get them to tell their name, and I say, I love America, because I think it's important that we teach children that they ought to love America. I'm not retiring to do nothing. I have 4 jobs coming in, so I have 3 other things going on. And one of the things that suffered the past year is my school for boys, and I don't have enough staff to keep them overnight. And so what we're doing is going to a trade school during the daytime. I have enough staff to do that. I needed one more person to do that. That was me. So we'll be doing that. There's many boys in Raleigh County and even other counties around us that are falling through the cracks with Penn Foster, with homeschool, with all kind of things like that. And we can bring them into our school, teach them a trade, get them, through their high school, get them graduated. We've graduated 37 boys since we started bringing them in 2017. So, and they've gone on to other trades and things like that. So we can teach them a trade. We can get them through school academically. We can give them an after-school job. They can come in the morning. They don't have to go home until they're finished working and getting paid for that of the evening. So those are things I think the Lord wants me to do, to come along beside of Summers County and what you have going on. Not to pull anything away. I know that enrollment is going down, but not to pull anything away, but just to pick up where they fall through the cracks. And I think that's what the Lord wants me to do. And I appreciate your prayers. And I'm not, I'm hoping I'm leaving on good terms. I want to continue to be a help. And so thank you for the 14 years that you've given me here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, item 6, we have presentations.
Secondary.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's good to see you. I'm here and Dr. Green is here and we're representing Dr. Holler. He was here with us last week and it's a long trip for him to come back. It's a 7-hour each way, so. He left us some notes, so I'm gonna go over them. He actually has a letter for you, a little statement. And he says, hello, my name is Ed Holler. This year I've had the pleasure of working at Summers County Comprehensive High School as an educational consultant from LifeWorks. I want to thank both Dr. Green and Mrs. Schaefer for providing the time and attention so that I could provide input and activities to support school goals that were developed early in the year. Mrs. Schaefer is going to review the items that were addressed during the year planning and interactive sessions with various members of the school staff. In this statement, I want to be clear on the opportunity that is present at the school. The leadership of Dr. Green is what's driving the changes at Summers County Comprehensive High School and the improvements that will be realized soon. He has been able to provide time and resources for meaningful activities that will put teachers with the skills and knowledge to improve both instruction and school operations. I have learned to appreciate Dr. Green's ability to identify and isolate issues, which help me bring to Summers County Comprehensive High School specific activities that have produced growth in the professional competencies of those who participated. Recently, Dr. Green requested that we begin working on a process to improve the quality of instruction in the school. The specific methodology we worked with universally is called backwards design. A pilot group of 5 teachers completed the production of a unit of study based on the backward design model just last week. Several staff members will participate in a similar activity in August prior to the opening of school. This fresh approach to planning and teaching will improve student mastery of identified targets and provide practice for high-stakes testing that they will face each spring. In summary, I think that Summers County Comprehensive High School is ready to make significant strides forward. Leadership is critical to making progress. Dr. Green is a school leader capable of making decisions that will improve instruction and generate a more wholesome school environment for the students and the staff. As Mrs. Schaefer reviews the work that was done this year, please keep in mind the critical role of leadership. I expect that significant process will soon be evident. Thank you, Ed Holler. So I put together a little outline with Dr. Green's assistance here of what we worked on with Dr. Holler throughout the school year. In the first semester, we mainly focused on classroom management. So in our classrooms with Dr. Holler, we completed walkthrough activities and follow-up conversations that focused on procedures, really worked on those follow-up sessions. We supported new staff in developing classroom management procedures and expectations, and provided special development and practice with the direct instruction model that included lesson designs to continue a well-managed classroom. And some of the next steps, I'm gonna have Dr. Green talk about the next steps we're gonna work on to continue with our classrooms.
All right, so regardless of whether Dr. Holler comes back or not, we'll continue our classroom walkthroughs. Yeah, that's something that as a principal in, Jumping Branch and here, I found to be very effective at improving the quality of instruction and ultimately student success. So we will continue working on those. We will, use that backwards design model as kind of a focus. All this year, really, we've looked at, what's your standards, what's the learning target? We've looked at some alignment, but really when we come back in the fall, our goal is to look at that a lot, to really take a deep dive and really look at the instructional activities and the resources that are being utilized to make sure that they're meeting the mastery of the standard. So those are the things we're going to continue to do. We would like to, over the course of the first 9 weeks of the school year, really look at teachers that are models for what we're looking for, that really can use that backwards design, that can use the standards to design their assessments and then their classroom practices. Dr. Holler talked about in his letter, by the way, I have never seen this letter until tonight, so I didn't know what the words were. I do appreciate Dr. Holler's confidence in my abilities. But we have 5 individuals who are going to work to lead this work in our PLCs in the fall and through the next school year. But those individuals, I believe, will also serve as models so that if we have teachers that are struggling, we can do peer observations in those rooms and have, follow-up conversations with the teachers. And, these are the things we talked about in the walkthroughs and our follow-up conversations. What do you notice between what you're doing and what they're doing, and kind of build a plan? So, because sometimes the theory sounds great, but seeing it in action is more impactful. And so that's something that we're going to do with those model classrooms. And that goes to the next step, providing specific training for new teachers and establishing classroom structures and routines. Again, those model classrooms and those basic elements of classroom management for our new teachers that they're still lacking, because they come in, they either have a little bit of training as far as in their education program, or some not at all. So we got to tailor that and give them a more detailed approach or more intense approach. It goes back to our tiered system of professional development. One of the things that Christy will talk about that we've done already in the second semester this year is we looked at our assessments. We looked at can teachers go through and really look and see what questions students got right, what they got wrong, where they need to go back and reteach and refocus, what can they move on. What we've done 2 rounds of that. And what we've seen is we've gotten better each time at that. We've done that. And so we've been able to, from that and our own observations in the classrooms this year, look at, kind of dividing our staff into, who's got it, who's off to the races. We can kind of just support them from the side, let them go. Who need just a little bit of support and a little bit of tweaking, and those are really got to spend the most time supporting. And that's our tiered system of professional development, which we are ready to implement in the fall. And then that direct instruction model, let that be the foundation of what we do. And when we talk about direct instruction model, some people might think that that's just lecture, but it's not. It's a teacher-driven instruction model. So that, and it can be a lot of different instructional activities, but the teacher's driving the instruction so that we understand school-wide, we have a solid foundation of instructional practices. Non-classroom, do you mind if I?
No, you covered that.
Okay. Things Dr. Holler has done with us this year. One of the first things he did was he came in and he looked at our lunch practices. And this is somewhere I'll admit that I have a kind of a weakness in middle school. What middle school lunch should look like. you know, what's too strict, what's not enough, you know, that type of what that balance would be. Dr. Holler was able to come in and say, look, you gotta tighten this up a little bit. This should be a lot more structured. And so that's something he's worked with the APs. I think I was gone his first time at a training. And so he pulled the APs aside and he said, well, you gotta work on this. And as he's come back and throughout the year, they have made changes. And now when you come into in our middle school lunch, it's much quieter, it's much more organized. And when they leave, for the most part, you can barely tell they've been in the lunchroom at all. Now, last week or so, school, I would not, that's not a good example, but in general, you barely can tell. The janitor no longer stays in the cafeteria during lunchtime. She's usually out in the building doing whatever else she needs to do. And when lunch comes in, sometimes she comes in to clean up, sometimes we just pick up the few pieces that are there. So that's one of the things, and we'll continue to monitor the progress, reteach in the fall, those, as we come back and teach it to the new sixth graders coming in. We've also tried this model with the high school. We've had pretty good success there as well, but there wasn't as great of a need at that to really amend the high school lunch. When Dr. Holler comes here, he very much models good administrative practices. You know, how, you know, while you're be there in the moment, take care of, you know, if there's an issue, take care of it. If there's a task that needs to be done or a job that needs to be done that maybe there isn't anybody to cover, you go take care of that. He kind of, I want to say that's like an added bonus, really. These are just nuances that that come with the job that you don't think about. And he's been very good about monitoring or modeling those practices. When he comes here, he works on his mission, which is classroom management and instruction. But if he's got extra time, he jumps in and he helps with those things too. Whatever is needed, he does. And again, that's really a model of just best practices. And working to build relationships with the staff. I mean, as you can imagine, you bring some random guy in to come in and tell you, hey, you got to improve your practice. You can imagine how that goes over, at the beginning. And I will say that we've had a couple instances where, those follow-up conversations are a little heated, but what they did when they went back is they start looking at, hey, maybe this man's not wrong. Maybe I need to reflect. And some of those that he had the most resistance with, he now has a pretty good supportive relationship with. So we just want to continue doing that. And Christy, you want us to?
One of the things that Dr. Holler does is he makes it a point to go to speak to the teachers when he comes in. He's, I want to check on teacher A or teacher B. When I was here last time, I saw them doing this. I just want to touch base with them. So he's working on developing those relationships. And he also works to start building those relationships with the students to where the students have input on what they're learning, on what's going on with the school. So that's one of the things that we've talked about that to include next year is to give students, have student voice and to help with our change. So that's one thing that he's been a big proponent of.
You want me to go or you want to?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Our IXL is a program that we have implemented this year with CSI funds, and it's been our whole group intervention tool for math and ELA. We kind of had a bumpy start. It's a new program. None of us have really ever used it full implementation before. And really learning, what growth is and how to measure that, how to grade that. When we looked at the data at the end of the first semester, the usage of it and the progress wasn't that great. And so Dr. Holler, we looked at the data. Dr. Holler sat down and we created what's called a logic model, basically a plan of action to increase implementation and who's going to be responsible for what. And we were at, because the program measures topics mastered. And We were probably around average one a week or less
One or less, yeah.
for first semester. Once we use IXL's data about what they determined to be indicator of progress, which was two topics per week, we made that the standard for grading in the middle school to pilot that. At the end, we are well over for middle school, over 4 topics mastered per week. And, usage has skyrocketed over the second semester, in thanks in part to the logic model. The other part, getting ourselves together on that. They have worked, Dr. Holler and Christy, I will say, have worked very well to build a method for reviewing data and how to increase student growth and participation. They do that together. They build a system where they meet once a week with the middle school teachers as a team to look at the growth of the students and to track that. And again, that kind of goes back with student accountability. So we want to continue to do that. We want to continue that model. I think Christy has some strategies that she's going to employ to increase the effectiveness of it. But we really just want to keep doing what we're doing and just refine our practices.
If I can add
Yep.
here, one of the things that I really want to work with Dr. Harler, and it kind of touched my toe into it a little bit this year, was students looking at their data and their test scores and what can they do to improve, just for students to set learning goals and improvement. We started that this year. We want to roll forward with that. He has a lot of great ideas. He helped me develop all this. And that's something that we're hoping to keep moving forward on, and just to keep growing and getting better and taking ownership of our learning, our student learning, and our teachers taking ownership of what we're teaching and what we're doing, and just keep moving forward.
We'll talk with, in grades, 3 through 8, we use the state Cambium system to benchmark. And twice this year, we have held sessions with math and ELA teachers for them to really dive into their data and look at their kids and see where they're at and build intervention groups with that. We want to continue to do that in the fall and in the spring when we do our benchmarking. Because middle school, we're going back to a 7-period day. So for middle school, the 7th period is going to be a skills class. They'll work on IXL, but it also will give time for the teachers to break them up into groups, kind of like the elementary model, where they have intervention time and they can build their small groups. We want to continue that data analysis piece so that they can have the time to build their small groups to target instruction. That goes back to, in Dr. Holler's statement, one of the things that, we take off. All these things we've done this year, we've built a foundation. We've kind of built the skills. We refine practices that, we thought we had it, but we come back and we didn't have it. And so now we have a pretty solid foundation from which to jump off of. When we come back in August, all we should have to do is put these plans into place with fidelity. And I truly believe we're going to see the growth that we want to see. That takes us to the next thing, which is intervention. And I'm going to let Christy talk about this because this has been kind of her rock for the second semester.
This was the one thing that I chose to focus a lot of my attention on. And I worked with Dr. Holler, and we, with teacher input, came up with a kind of a guide or like a model for teachers to use to look at student data. We looked at what skills that our students were highest in, what skills were students lowest in. So, and what we did, and we spent 2 full days doing this. We looked at our data after the first benchmark and after the second benchmark. We looked at our skills that the students were struggling in. And we also specifically geared down and looked at those students who were right on that cusp of moving up from partially meets our standards to meet standards. So we identified those students and what areas they were weak in. And the teachers wanted to bring in our science and social studies teacher to help those students move up to the next level. So that was one of the things we talked to the science and social studies teachers, and of course they were willing So we had 2 rounds of intervention going for every day for each grade level. We had 2 teachers doing ELA and 2 teachers doing math. For example, maybe the science teacher and the reading teacher did ELA, then the social studies and the math teacher worked on math. Then on Fridays, we got together as a team of 4 and looked at what our students are doing, in what areas they're growing in, what areas they were weak in, and using that data to guide our instruction. So that's something that we started doing this year. I think we've got a good foundation started. We still have a long way to go, and we're going to keep working and keep refining those procedures. One of the things that Dr. Holler and I really want to, we talked about and really want to start working on next year is to bring in the student portion too, where the students are looking at their data and having those data talks with students, and having families come in and having the students explain what does this test mean? This is what I scored. This is what I'm looking at. These are my areas of weakness. This is my plan for growth. So that's the area that the goal is to move to beginning next year. And we want to do that after each benchmark. Well, and when we get our general summative scores back in August, we'll start with that, then our benchmark 1 and our benchmark 2. So our goal is to do that 3 times in the coming year.
So what's the plan? Sorry, I didn't mean to jump on.
You're fine.
So what, you brought up the general GSATs. And so what is the plan to work with the students and parents once we get that data back?
Once we
in
have the
August?
data, we'll have a family night, and I'll have all that data printed out. And before the parents get here, we will sit down with the teachers and the students, and we will go through what all that data means. What does the ranges mean? What is the scaled score? The scaled scores are divided into 3 different tiers for growth. So even though you may be partial mastery, there are 3 tiers of partial mastery, and to move up those tiers and what that means. And the scores that they would need, the number of points. Sometimes it's 1 question, sometimes it's 2 questions. And when students see that to move up to that next level, that, oh, it's 1 more question, I could do 1 more question, to move up to the next level. And where the students understand it, this is what this means. There's a report that will show them what they started in 3rd grade, what they scored in 3rd grade, 4th grade. They can go back and look at their history and the areas they're weak in, go back and set those goals. I need to work on something that's specific in mathematics. IXL has that. The teachers can go in and assign that specifically to that student for those areas of weakness. Have introduced the parents to what IXL is, to where the areas of weakness and how to find that, to where the parents understand this is what we're working toward. This is what all this means. These are the tools that are available to you. Another one of my goals is to bring all of our programs together, our after-school program, our communities and schools, our healthcare providers that are here, to bring every program that's available, our parents, our community, and to bring all that together to where we're fully utilizing all the tools that we have. I think we have a lot right now. We're just not using them.
Together,
Yeah,
collectively.
to move together, to move forward together. So that's one of the goals that we're going to work on and make sure the parents understand as well. That's one of our goals.
It's a very tactical question, but as far as getting the parents and families here for that, because I know that parent involvement has been not great since COVID, really not great since before COVID.
Since
So, is there a plan to?
One of the things that Dr. Holler and I have discussed, and sometimes my thoughts can be, I tend to think they're harebrained, but he's very supportive of this one, is to where if the parents can't get here, is to schedule times to where they can meet virtually. They can meet with myself, they can meet with, then their student can meet with us, and we could do it virtually. I mean, we have all those tools, we used them all for COVID, that's still available to us, and still have that. One of the things that Dr. Green and I have really been talking about is making tutorial videos for families. on how to look at these scores and sending that out, to get more communication out, and even about the things that we're doing in school. You know, I look at it this way, they're talking about us, and I want to make sure that everyone has a clear understanding of what we're doing, what we're doing to move forward, what we're trying. Maybe this doesn't work, we'll try something else. I want to have those lines of communication open. If someone has an idea of where to try, share it. Let's give it a try. So that's one of my goals, is to be available virtually.
Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to jump in your presentation.
You're good, you're good.
I think all of those are really great ideas, and one thing too is that several kids in our community live with grandparents. And sometimes grandparents are a little scared of technology. So, maybe have something in mind to keep it a little less technical, so they won't be afraid to come in and take a look at these scores, grandma and grandpa, because, I have a neighbor that doesn't have any internet or anything like that. She doesn't have access to that stuff, and she'll give me a call and she'll say, can you go on that internet and look something up for me? Because they really are a little bit afraid of technology. So that might be something to keep in the back of your mind too.
I love that idea.
Because
Thank
some
you.
of the students live with their grandparents.
I will keep that thought in mind. Thank you. I'm going to take a step back from intervention and let Susan and Greg come up. They've worked a lot with our teachers to help with intervention and to work in the classroom. So I'm going to take a step back and let them speak a little bit. I could go on too long. I gotta read.
Presentations on time.
Greg is gonna speak to you about math. Susan will do language arts, and it's probably best to let those two stay in those lanes.
Well, first of all, Cindy Wilson could not be here tonight. She's traveling this week, but we did collaborate on the report for the math. And I would like to also say, before I get started, that I am impressed with the work Christy has been doing, and Dr. Holler, Dr. Green, and we've been a small part of that, but there's a lot of good things in place that I think will make a difference in the long run of this school. I also want to thank you for the opportunity you've given us to work with your teachers and staff and the administration. Obviously, we were here to help improve the math scores, and we've seen progress throughout the year. We've monitored, the benchmarks. We've monitored some assessments in the classroom and the instruction, and we think you'll see some improvement. We have worked with teachers on several things, but obviously teaching strategies, not just sticking with the same old thing, resources, intervention, and classroom management. We've confirmed that all the math teachers are using and special education teachers are using the current West Virginia content standards, which are changing for this year, by the way. Teachers were given copies of the standards to post in their rooms, and some teachers chose to write on the board. In the case of middle school teachers, we have prepared, we started this 3 years ago. We made folders for the middle school teachers on OneDrive, and has all the resources in it, which includes the teaching standards and the West Virginia support standards, which breaks the standards down by kind of in little steps to get to that standard, which is a very beneficial tool. We made classroom visits. Our classroom visits were conducted to verify that the standards were being taught, essential questions or learning targets were being used, and students were being taught essential. I came over here with the top down in the car, now I'm all choking. Bad mistake. Anyway, let me start that. Classroom visits were conducted to verify that the standards were being taught, essential questions or learning targets were being used, and students were being challenged with higher DOK questions. Teachers were given written feedback or a face-to-face conference. We always followed up with our visits. Data analysis was conducted on the benchmark assessments. This was working with the teachers. Teachers had the opportunity to take the results and adjust their instruction based upon the strengths and weaknesses of their students. This also helped to identify those students who needed intervention and what to plan for during the intervention time. Mrs. Wilson provided the high school teachers with SAT practice questions to use to help students prepare for that testing. And again,
with, I work primarily at the middle school, I provided a bank of questions to help prepare for the GSA, and that was in those online folders, and those have just kind of grown over the 3 years, to include a lot of stuff, including like the blueprint, for the GSA and things like that. The XIXL program was implemented this year. That was new to the teachers and us as well. We've kind of learned it together. We assisted teachers with its use and looking at the data that it provided. During intervention time, the teachers were visited to assess how the program was working for them, and we provided resources to assist them in that regard. We met regularly with Mrs. Schaefer in order to be updated on how things were going and ways that we could be of assistance to her and the staff. We had the opportunity to assist with the work of Dr. Holler. He did extensive work with assessments. The work helped teachers to examine their own teacher-created assessments. Focus was on the DOK level and addressing the standard that was being taught. We also attended the workshops and assisted the teachers during the workshops that were provided by Carrie Meldrum with the SREB. And her professional developments, I must say, were spot on. They were some of the top professional developments I've attended. I enjoyed being a part of that, and I think they were very beneficial to our teachers. We also worked with Samantha Jones to assist with her in attaining matching funds for Gear Up. And as coaches, the three of us, Mrs. Kincaid and Ms. Wilson and I, met regularly to reflect, debrief, and to plan our next steps. And again, we appreciate, the opportunity you've given us.
What he said, with a little ELA spin to it. I think you've heard a lot of things that have been done or being done or going to be done. I just want to kind of go my own way and kind of talk about what does some of this look like. And I have allergies and such, so I didn't know with him. So, do my best. I want to start out with saying that what I noticed during the cause for applause section was how the adults in this room, their eyes just lit up when the kids would be called up or talked to, because I know I do that as well. That's the parts that I love. And I think that's just a good way of saying that the people in this room are people who obviously care about kids. And if you care about kids and you're in the business of education, you want them to learn and to get what they need and not, well, I don't know any in this building, but I used to call people who didn't do their jobs in the school, you are a thief. You are, because I'm dramatic like that. Do not be a thief and steal from a child's education. So having said that, pretty much what I do is spend as much time in classrooms as I can. And when I start out, a lot of times teachers may think, oh, she's there till they get used to having other people in their rooms. I'm not there judging anybody or just, I don't evaluate anyone. I'm no one's supervisor, but I like to be in the classroom. And usually for a while, I'm casing the kids. Because I want to see what are the kids like here? What are the kids? How do they interact? How do they behave? How do they seem to respond in this particular class, in this particular classroom? And in some wacky way, that's helpful to me in kind of thinking, what do those kids need? And, teachers, of course, they have that innate ability, but that helps me work with the teachers. When I left teaching to become a specialist, oh my goodness, curriculum specialist almost 11 years ago, I cried for a while, not a long time, but I immediately cried when I accepted the job because I was thinking about all the kids that I was going to be walking out from leaving. And these are big kids, high school. And I finally figured out that doing this type of work, I can affect more kids other than the 120 or whatever that I had in my classes. Because if I can touch just a few teachers, then look how many kids that I'm actually affecting. And that's what my goal is. So teachers, working with teachers. Mr. Mentor mentioned feedback when you're doing classroom visits and feedback. I like to do those as well. This year spent more time doing so with middle grades. But what that looks like for me is not wanting anyone to be, uncomfortable. I usually will carry my laptop in. And I'm not sitting there writing copious notes about them, maybe a few things, or I might sit and just have nothing, because who wants to be doing their job and someone's sitting there doing this, okay? So I'll get a few things kind of behind, but when I offer that feedback, I do it two ways. I will kind of write it up. If there's something that was not such a good idea that was used in a lesson, I'm not going to say that, but I'll ask a question. So my feedbacks are comments and questions. Comments are all going to be the good ones. Questions are kind of going to be, how do you think you might have reached the class with that one assignment changing? What could you have changed about that? Just something to get them thinking without appearing to be critical. And they usually, I think a lot of teachers do that to begin with. Then I will catch up with them and then do kind of a little, verbal. If I can get just a few minutes of what did you think about what I said, or did you have any questions? Okay, beyond that, is pretty much everyone else has said, I'm a resource. And I'm a resource especially for teachers, because they have so many things on their plate and so many new things are always coming along and being introduced, and try this and use that, and oh, look at this new program. And there's only so much room in their brains and time in their day. So I try to make sure that, for example, with GSA, any changes made with that this year, big change. We don't have ELA data because the writing changed. And then they did that in March. So that was, teachers have to stop and adjust themselves and think, oh gosh, I better make sure I've covered all these writing standards probably by January, because we're going to get snow and then it's going to be time for the writing assessments. So just making sure that they're aware of those kind of things, keeping them kind of running with that. Also, a new genre of writing was added, and that's narrative, which I was like, yay, that's the easiest because kids are used to doing that. But then I think they kind of got a little confused with it. We don't know yet because we haven't seen it, but that kind of had to be introduced to them differently as well. Teaching strategy. Sometimes teachers just, they get in the mode of doing the same old thing and they want to know new ways to do things. That's what I'm here for. Some who might need some help with classroom management and may not think they do. I'll kind of like point out to them nicely that yes, you do. And you need to try this, this, and that. And kind of interacting with the students a bit, which has helped me a good bit. A couple of big things that happened this year in the ELA world here is that we started out the year without a 10th grade ELA teacher who teaches most of the 10th and some of the 12th. And we had a very nice gentleman who came in and took that long-term position all year. And he was a fast learner, and I worked with him at the beginning to kind of get him acclimated to, content, which he was good with ELA, but learning, particular content and standards for the classes he was teaching, getting him some resources. And then at some point about mid of the fall semester, I kind of let his hand go and just, do check-ins and be a resource for him. Another crisis occurred maybe around the end of the third 9 weeks. We had in 8th grade ELA, we had a long-term sub for that period of time. And she was very gracious and delightful to work with. And basically what I did with her and with those kids, knowing we're this close to testing, was making sure that all the priority standards using data from the semester. And I created lessons, and then the 2 days a week that I would come in after they did their Excel, we had just enough time for a 30-minute lesson. So I would go in and start out in the morning with the teacher, and she would kind of teach with me, and I call it the graduate release is what we call it. Just like when you're teaching, the teacher does it, so I do it, and she did it with me like a tag team, and then she was able to teach these lessons on her own, but I would support her the days that I was there and be with her most. Then I left her materials and lesson plans for the rest of the year. I'm really sorry. That sounds terrible. I'm going to hurry up. Okay. I think we talked a little bit about intervention. I also was able with that 8th grade, fabulous science teacher who was doing the 8th grade intervention for ELA. So I worked with her a pretty good bit because she was doing it 4 days a week for one period. And I think she learned a lot because she was okay with doing the content, but she wasn't sure about teaching it. So I felt good that that was just teaching her some strategies and ways of teaching, even if it wasn't going to be science. SAT, lots of resources this year because tests changed and it's digital and the formatting of it changed a little bit, fewer questions. Still kind of trying to work through how to read the reports properly. But lots of resources to the 11th grade ELA teacher. For example, we have there was a new program called Blue Book. So I went in one day at the beginning and we had all of his 11th grade students downloaded that app onto their device. And it basically just gave them online practice tests that they could do. So he had a lot of things to choose from. SAT question bank, he could go online and make his own questions and make his own quizzes, or he could use any that were already available digitally or on paper. Okay, I'm going to finish up with something that I love. It's near and dear to my heart, though Ms. Holt knows I'm not much of a mathematician, but that's data. Why is it important? I'm not going to talk about any of it because what we do have is it's still embargoed, I guess. So why is it important? And if you're a teacher and you wanted to wonder why is it important, I would be looking at you and saying, then how will you know whether these students learned any of these skills? Having taught myself, one of my answers would have been, I can usually tell by the look on their face if they're getting it or not getting it. But, I don't think that's going to get us very far. That's a real credible piece of evidence there. He was making a frown. We don't know if his stomach was upset or his phone was going off in his pocket. Who knows? So data does give us something to go by. Some people say, well, the kids don't try. Well, that's probably true. But we've got to have something. And I would say, well, what would you use? So nobody else has come up with a good answer. So once we get data back from all of these, and teachers can give formative ones as well during the year, they can go back and they can look at the skills of their kids. If they did, everybody bombed, well, they're really teaching that skill a whole lot. If 30% of their kids bombed on this one skill, well, they have ways that they can do groups or even in their Excel, focus on those skills. But the final thing, and to me, this is the important thing, even more so than in the data. Those tests are based on the standards that teachers have, and they're under contract to teach. And I don't go around looking at all the standards and judging them. I've seen them, have strong opinion. But I can tell you that I think the ELA standards are good. And they are handy because they just progress a little and work up a little bit. Same standard up through every grade level. So they're easy to work with. They're important standards. And teaching these standards or doing these tests, it's just not a teach to the test. If they learn these standards and do well on a test, it means they've learned. And I'm sorry, I sound like a frog, so I'm going to quit. I will say thank you to everybody that I've worked with. Ms. Chrissy has been awesome. Dr. Green, Jack, and I'm going to say this in public. You might not know this, but when we came in and Greg said, Jack, and I said, he said, Jack. And I said, Chipping Jack. So now you know that what I first time said. Yeah, always so nice. The teachers, when I first came here, I was stunned because they were glad to see people like us walk in. And I'm like, oh, wow. I even had a teacher one time say, I had visited her class and like 40 minutes later, she emails and says, where's my feedback? Okay, I mean, she was so happy. Somebody's telling me how I'm doing, So it's been a nice experience being here. I hope I do get to come back, but I'll say the same thing if I do. Everybody's been welcoming, kind, nice. The teachers in this school are amazing. I'm so sorry, I'm just gonna quit. I think it's a great place.
I'm just gonna wrap up. One of the goals that I have for next year is I want to present to you on a regular basis about what we're doing and our data and keep you all up to date. So that's one of my main goals for next year. I'm gonna go ahead and stop here. You have more there for you. I'm not gonna go through it all because it'd be a lot. So for what all we've done. So thank you for your time. If you have any questions or anything, just let me know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions or comments you all have?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think to the group, and I know this is, a jam-packed schedule, so I apologize for belaboring this, but this is probably the most important thing because we are investing such a huge amount of money with the interventionists, with LifeWorks, with all of these consultants, and we have the state watching us, looking at us with our CSI designation. So I just, to the folks that are still here, what successes have you all had this past year? What were your greatest challenges? And what opportunities do you see for next year?
I would say let's start with our challenge. Our greatest challenge is really building what this looks like. Because intervention being the biggest one, really going behind tailor, teach students. That's not a normal model to a secondary level. In elementary, there's a lot of options that you can do that, but here, figuring out what that looks like and putting it into place has been the biggest struggle. Two, biggest struggles have been the foundations, the things we've talked about that we expect to happen. Those didn't exist here before this past school year. So building those has been a struggle, and then implementing them consistently has been a struggle. Because again, we train and we think we know what it's going to look like. You put it into place, and it comes back, and what you get isn't exactly what you envisioned, and so you got to debrief and do that. So what I would say our biggest challenge is really just to build a model, to be able to have something we can run with.
And there's really no models out there for intervention for us to look at. That was one of the things that we had talked to with our CSI leader. If there were schools that we could visit, to see all the interventions done in a middle school. There are none. So it's something that, so Dr. Green and I, we talked and we met with the vice principals, and so basically our goal was to create a model. So, we made some steps forward. We went back, took a look at what we were doing, made some changes, come back. We're just gonna keep on pushing forward, and our goal is to be that model.
So biggest successes, tangible, I would say the second semester utilization of IXL. It's probably been our biggest success thus far. We've seen students really take it to heart and kind of own it at this point because they know there's some accountability, but not just but also what that accountability looks like. We've been able to define that. So that's one of our biggest tangible successes as far as student achievement. But then the rest of it is we're ready to kick off the school year for next year with a solid plan for instructional leadership and strategies to put into place. And being in another school where we turned that around, that's really what we spent the first year doing too, was getting kids where they needed to be, building the structures in place for success. And then that second year, we came back hard and ready to go. And we put those in place, and we saw great successes in our school's tests, our student achievement overall. So I have no reason to doubt that that's going to happen here as well. So again, IXL has been a major success, and then two, the foundations for our school to operate effectively, support each kid.
And so, good segue too. So what or how was the reception from the staff this year in using our our consultants that we've used?
Well, it's been a mixed bag. At the beginning, as I said earlier, there were some that were just ardently opposed to it. Now, Greg and Cindy, they're kind of, Susan, they're used to them by now. So I can't really speak to that. But I can speak to, Dr. Holler, and I can also speak to Harry Meldrum, who was brought in by the state. Dr. Holler, again, there was some mixed reactions, but in the end, teachers were complying and giving honest effort into the tasks that we were asking them to do. Like when we talk about the assessment reflections, we went through 2 rounds of that. Teachers analyzing the data. Dr. Holler was here for both of those rounds, and those teachers worked all day long, very hard to produce a lot of good work there. So in the work products that they have delivered, I would say that there's been a great reception from these individuals. Again, there are holdouts here and there, but overall, they've done the work. They've met the expectations. Generally, if there's a lot of resistance, you get minimal work that's been turned in. It's fair. The product is not that great. I can honestly say that true, honest effort has been given every time, and I've seen improvement every time.
There's been some top-notch work by the teachers here,
And then,
they need to be good.
and as the math department, I can say that with Ms. Carrie Nolan, the SRAB math coach, there's been a lot of success with that, but that seems to be well received.
Thank you. And so to Greg and Susan, you've been here for a couple years now, and we've had some changes here at this school, and I just would like your all's feedback and input from, how this year compares to last year.
Well, I said it a little bit earlier, there's a lot of things in place that was put in place this year that are positive, and we're moving in the right direction. You can't make all the changes at once, but the thing is, you got to evaluate what you're doing, and what you just said, like the intervention program. They implemented the IXL, but it's just not, we just put it here this year and we're leaving it that way. They've already got plans for next year, how we're gonna make it better. And we worked some with Dr. Hall on that too. But it's just like as a teacher, if you're doing the same thing every year and not evaluating what you're doing, nothing's happening. But my last year of teaching before I retired, I had ideas what I was gonna do next year, how I was gonna change teaching expressions and equations. I had ideas. And that's what a teacher should be. And, it's always changing. And the same thing with this framework we got in place. It's just not, well, got this idea this year, and it's there. They're constantly looking ahead and evaluating it. And I think that's the key, evaluating what we're doing and, what's the word? Monitoring, constant and consistent monitoring of what's going on. Did that answer your question?
I intended to mention this earlier, but, some reflections. I feel like this past year as compared to the first year, and the first year that I came in, we didn't start until maybe December 1st, and then came for a day or two, and then started back in the winter, so kind of how that. But I have seen growth in teachers, and, I'm not going to name names, we'll just assume they're all good, but I have seen growth in that they are more intentional with what they're choosing to teach. As I mentioned earlier about the standards, for example, I might have seen the first year, if you're looking at ELA, probably the teasiest thing is going to be pronouns. Now, in the head of any English teacher, that's blasphemy. But if you're looking at it from what they need to learn, just taking end of it, why are we going to spend 3 weeks on pronouns when you've got kids sitting in here that are like 30% proficient in both parts of reading? I didn't say it like that, I promise, but that was basically the questioning that, that only makes sense, and just getting them focused because there's so many things pulling their attentions. But I was seeing more intentional choice of what they were teaching. Maybe a little more structure for instance, teaching a novel, sometimes I'm like, what standards are you, of making some of their own lessons to go, well, in this chapter, this is what we were covering. So that then, reading a novel becomes getting a lot of standards. That's probably the biggest change. Attitudes, be more reflective, and I think this year the goal setting, the day was maybe in February, the data session, that was all day, the 7th and 8th, yes. That they became very, very data centric in setting goals, and, oh no, I know that we only have this as a goal that we need to reach, but I want to go for 10, or I want to go for 20, because if I say 20% great, then maybe I'll hit 10. So I noticed in that type of thinking, a difference. Pretty much what I like to say is this process is very similar to when you plant a new scrub. Because if you've ever noticed, you can't plant it on a lilac bush or something. It's usually not until the 3rd year that it really starts coming up and blooming. Am I crazy talking, or does anybody know what I'm talking about? Thank you, thank you. So, yeah, I look like the 75%. All right, thanks. But I'm kind of seeing this, and I think the 3rd year is probably where it'll all come together. And we'll be seeing, we'll hear the results of all of these different things that have been going on.
But you've got to focus and structure now as we get ahead.
Thank you.
I like the comment that I heard several different individuals have spoke, is that with the framework that's in place, there's already plans for next year in what you are going to be able to do to increase that productivity and that collaboration. So, with, as we've talked about earlier tonight, with budget constraints, it's good to know that you are already thinking ahead on how you can improve on what we've been able to reach at this point. So. Anything else? Thank you all for coming.
Thank
you. Thank you.
Appreciate your presentations. All right, item 7, we have before us. Now I'm gonna have a problem, I'm afraid. And I didn't have the top down. The superintendent recommends approval of the following minutes. April 16th was a statutory meeting, May 16th statutory meeting, and May 16th of our regular meeting agenda.
I make a motion to approve the minutes of April 16th.
I'll second.
Motion by Mr. McBride, seconded by Mr. McBrogan. You're Irish now.
Already will.
That we approve the April 16th, May 16th statutory meetings and May 16th regular meetings. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. Those minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the April 16th, May 16th statutory meeting and May 16th regular meeting minutes have been approved. All right, we have before us now the RT Rogers bill.
Make a motion that we pay Archie Rogers.
Motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we pay the RT Rogers bill. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstaining. But the minutes reflect by a 4-0 vote, the bill for RT Rogers has been approved for payment with Mr. Brogan recusing himself. All right, we have now before us the remainder of the bills.
Make a motion to pay the bills. I'll second.
Motion on the floor by Mr. McBride, seconded by Mr. Brogan, that we pay the remainder of the bills. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the remainder of the bills have been approved for payment. Item 9, transfers and supplements. Item 10, this was just asked to be left on here, discussion or possible action regarding Grow Your Own program. I did speak with Mr. Kuhn prior to the meeting. Still doing some research, trying to get some more information on that. I did mention him. We did have one of our graduates who was participating in the Grow Your Own. She received a sash, and I think she's actually maybe getting a computer from WVDE or something like that to further her education with that program. Was there two? Could been. So we'll just leave this on the agenda for the next meeting, and if we get any information by then, we can discuss it at that time. Item B, discussion or possible action regarding Jumping Branch Tabernacle parking lot.
Mr. Cottle is still working on the MOU to tweak a few things for the church to agree on. So, most likely at the next board meeting, we'll have something for you to vote on, but we have to get their point of view before you guys get your point of view. It's a back and forth at this point in time.
Okay, so we'll take no action on that at this time. Item C, discussion or possible action regarding superintendent evaluation. I'll make a motion under West Virginia Code 6-9A-4 personnel that we go into executive session, and the time is 6:41 p.m. Do I have a second? McBride, Mr. McBride seconds. A motion by myself, seconded by Mr. McBride. We go into executive session, 6:41 p.m. All in, any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that we will go into executive session. All right, executive session ended at 7:23 PM, so we will call back to order the regular meeting. We have done the superintendent's evaluation as required by policy, and Mr. Warble has a copy of that, and he will be submitting that to the state as required. All right. Next item we have is discussion of possible action to approve MOU between Summers County Schools and Raynell Medical Center. We had the presentation last week, or last board meeting. We have the MOU in front of us, and we have a lady here from Raynell that will answer any questions that you might have. And the MOU it's not changed any. There was a misprint on the last paper we had. That MOU did not expire prior to this meeting. It was good through the July timeframe. So again, this one's going to be the same as far as the
We're
dates
early
go.
this year.
Yeah. Pardon?
So we're early this year.
We approved, yeah, we're approving it probably before the previous one runs out. Yeah. And that's for Raynell, so they can plan for staffing and what have you.
We also have to place some extra plans, that can help this week. For whatever the next week.
Okay. Thank you.
So, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the MOU between Summers County Schools and Raynell Medical with the exception that, that we do not utilize any classroom space within the school building, that we maintain the trailers for the, center.
I'll second that.
I'll say what on that.
Make a motion that we approve the MOU, so long as that we do not give up any classroom space for Raynell Medical Center to come into the building, that they would continue to stay in the trailers as they are currently.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. Brogan, to approve the MLU for Raynell Medical Center, provided that they remain in the trailer space that they're currently in.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Mr. Brogan. Is there any discussion on this?
I guess the only question I have is, where do we go from there? Because I don't think they can afford the trailers. And I don't know where we put those trailers, because that'll all become parking lot for the new addition. I guess that's the only question.
I don't see a reason why they can't stay where they're at for now.
Because that's all parking.
It's
lot.
all been parking lot.
I really don't see how we can give up classroom space
We're not giving up classroom
to
space.
move them into the building.
There's no space that'll be given up for, all classrooms are accounted for. Dr. Green has the whole classroom assignments for next school year. There's no classes being taken away from one student here at this building.
Well, it's my understanding that we're trying to get our CNA program moved into a
Not
class.
CNA program, it's a health technician
Technician.
program.
Yeah, technician.
Okay. Moved into a classroom that doesn't even have a sink
It does have,
or cabinetry.
it does have what it needs.
Is this something new?
Now, this is the room they were in before, when they had that CT classroom. We're just giving them back their space that they had before. The current space they're in was the LPN classroom that we had for the adults. Now that we have all this room, we would have a place for Raynell to use, and then that would open up parking spaces for parents and people to come into the gymnasium area for athletic events, and then also for staffing to park on that side of the facilities.
What is Rainelle Medical position in regards to?
Remaining in the trailers or
Well, I think that Tara had talked a little bit about it the last time, and she did say that, you know, the expense of keeping those would be quite extensive. I know that she did have a grant at that point, and I think that, and you have to bear with me because I just come on board about 2 months ago. So in regards to what had happened previously, I'm not 100% sure. I know that we were allotted a grant. And then the grant was actually, it had to be used for something else because of a situation or not being able to get in here or something to do with that. And she wasn't able to be here tonight. But I think that being in the schools would be more beneficial because it's not as much space. It's easier access for the students and the staff. And speaking from my personal experience, I'm passionate about FQHCs and being in the school system. Because in 2014, I was in nursing school and I had 3 kids at the time. I had a 1-year-old and a 1-year-old and a 10-year-old. And my husband was killed in an electrical accident at work. And so I have no support system. And so with that being said, FQHC being in a school is what saved me and my kids. It allowed them to have pre-counseling. It allowed them to have their well visits. It allowed them to have their dental visits without me having to take time off work because it's me and my 3 kids. I was able to utilize those services and keep my kids in seats. And I have kids with special needs. I have kids with IEPs. I have kids that have extended circumstances and care. And you have situations where you have widows, you have grandparents who are on fixed incomes that are trying to raise grandchildren. You have parents who can't take time off work because they can't afford it. And so, like, I just think it's extremely important for us to be in a building to be able to provide services for these kids and the staff so that they're not missing out on education.
right. I understand. I can appreciate everything you've told me, and I have always been a big fan of Rainelle Medical being here, and I think that it's worked very well having them in the trailer, and you know, that's the way it was set up to begin with. So I was just curious what Rainelle Medical's point of view was. I know when last meeting, I can't remember if it was Mr. Angel or Mr. Brogan asked Ms. Skaggs if that was a game changer, and she said, no, it was just expensive. So I wondered if that had changed since that point in time.
I think it is still pretty expensive to be able to uphold the trailers and the access of being able to get the kids in and out and safely get them in. If you're in the school system and you're able to be here and they're not actually going outside to transport them back and forth. So, I mean, logistics on both ends that we could argue until we're blue in the face, but.
Right, right.
It does come down to a cost, and it would come down to grant funding and what we would be able to be allotted to use.
Right. And the board is from the start concerned about the classrooms being used for the students and the teachers, and also having people that are being treated from the community actually being in the school building itself. That's a concern. But anybody else?
And we are in other schools that way too. And so we actually set up walkways and breezeways that are actually locked. So even if an outside community person were to come in, they actually come through 2 double locked doors in the way that they had set it up. So they can't just freely come in the school. So the logistics in that aspect would most definitely be worked out. We want the children to stay safe too, like this. Would you want to say anything as far as the health services? Or how do you feel about the trailers? She's worked here a little bit longer than me. She actually works at this site.
So I was actually in the school, not this past school year, last school. And this year, I was out in trailers. You know, one of the things that I've noticed is accessibility to treating the students and being able to build the rapport and the relationship that I need, not only with the students, the staff here at the school. It was much harder to facilitate discussions that needed to be had between administrators and staff and their concerns regarding the students that are in the school when I'm out there than what it was when I was in the building. They knew that I was available. They knew what they told me. If there was a crisis, they could immediately access. This year it wasn't so. So, you know, I roughly saw around 80 kids between all the schools that I'm at. At the schools where I was able to be inside the building, which was the elementary schools, and they do operate vastly different ways. It was much easier to coordinate that here. A lot of the kids that I've worked with are intellectually disabled, they have developmental delays. And so some of them require additional services, and that requires. So, you know, I guess my only perspective would be that if we are to continue to be in trailers, we have to facilitate some type of community. Because that is lost, that's disconnected, when we're disconnected. So I do understand the importance of education. They would not have take away from me. But I also want to make sure that all their needs are being met.
The other thing when talking with Tara, we wouldn't be dealing with the outside people during school hours. It'd be after the kids have left to have them deal with the public. So that was an issue that we did not want to have any, I'll call it cross-pollination. To deal with the students and the staff first and everybody else second.
In school-based health, that is our priority. We do take care of our students and our staff before we take care of the community. It's not that we turn them away, we just try to schedule them outside of the hours because you never know what's gonna come in with our children. If they need to be seen, we try to get them in to be seen because we don't want them to continue to stay in school if they're contagious, but we also don't want them getting called home and sent home if it's something that we can take care of, or we can treat and then send them back to class.
Well, I would say that we have a lot of people, a lot of staff on board that are safety aware. Before I was a therapist, I did forensic interviewing for advocacy. So that is definitely something that crosses my mind. It's part of everything that I, especially when interacting with the community in the setting where our children are present. Safety is the number one concern, so that would be addressed.
All right, is there any other discussion? Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. Brogan, that we accept the MOU between Summers County Schools and Rainelle Medical, provided that Rainelle Medical remain in the trailer annex. Did I state that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the MOU between Summers County Schools and Rainelle Medical Center has been approved with the stipulation that they remain in the trailer annex. Item E, discussion or possible action concerning the following policy. This is Roman numeral 4-M-8, tuition reimbursement for educators. This is the one we talked about, and we were going to see if we could include our CTE as area of critical need, and if they could be included with that tuition reimbursement for classes that they may have to take coming into us from the private sector to be able to be a CTE teacher. So I don't know, have we got any information on that?
Yeah, we contacted the State Department and, well, you can go ahead, Adam.
Well, two things. One, the coordinator of the State Department indicated that CTE permits would not be reimbursable under state code. I will say though that I want to ask a follow-up to that because the state code also says first class permit. And CTE teachers are on a first class permit if they're getting their licensure. So that was we had the conversation on the phone and then went back and I reviewed the policy. And first class permit is still the language. And I went and reviewed some of our certificates of our educators here that are in their classes, and there it is a first class permit for CTE. So we're still following up on trying to nail it down exactly what.
Okay, so we'll just leave this on the agenda for the next meeting. Thank you. Discussion or possible action regarding CSBO contract. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Bifocals. Item F, discussion or possible action regarding math textbook adoption. I think we postponed this one to get some information about the textbook adoption. Is this one we carried over from last meeting?
Yes, I think he was gonna have Ms. Jones talk to us.
That's what I was thinking as well.
You should have the copy of all that.
Yep.
You have a rundown of all the book reviews. And one of these sheets. This one right here. Okay.
Yeah, you can push that over closer if you want. You don't have to stand in the corner. Everybody keeps moving further away from us.
Are handy. First, I'd like to talk to you about how we created the textbook committee for the elementary and the secondary. At the elementary, we wanted to make sure we had a classroom teacher from each grade, K-5. We also wanted to make sure Title I was represented and special education. So those committee members, Ms. Holt's here and she can speak on the secondary. They first went to Charleston for a textbook caravan where they met with vendors and listened to presentations. They brought lots of samples home. Then we had several after-school meetings with the committee members, and we narrowed it down to 4 vendors. So after that, we had those 4 vendors come in and do a face-to-face presentation so we could learn more about their program. Talkett Elementary did a pilot with the Novomat that we're asking for approval tonight. We also had teachers from Hinton Area and Jumping Branch visit Talcott and see that pilot in action. So we voted on it, and Novomat was who the textbook committee chose. And you'll see that it's for K-4, if they are developing 5th grade materials, and those should be ready by September.
I'm seeing the names of these books and I'm having flashbacks. I might have that.
What will we do until September? Just continue using the textbooks that we have?
They have some ready now, but the full content, full curriculum will be ready, but we'll have enough to start.
Get us through to September, okay.
And what really attracted us to this program is how it's the scope and sequence. It's a spiral review. So not only the kids are learning new material, but it spirals back to previous skills that
So
they
they all
learned.
kind of work together.
Right, so it's not learn it and put it aside and learn something new. It's constantly brought in front of the students again. And then another thing that we really liked was the professional development that's going to be provided. If you approve them tonight, they will be here one of the first days of school, and we'll have a whole day of training for our teachers. They met with our teachers today just to give an overview. They'll also provide weekly coaching sessions with our schools, and we're going to have the PLC meetings at the schools at the same time. So that'll be virtual, weekly coaching with our teachers. And then they're also going to come in and do classroom visits and give feedback, model, coaching, and they'll do that once a semester. So we really like the PD piece. Any questions?
Thank you. Thanks. I'll make a motion that we approve the math textbook adoption list.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Farley, seconded by Mrs. Harvey, that we approve the math textbook adoption. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? But the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the math textbook adoption has been approved. All right, now we're at discussion and possible action regarding CSBO contract. I make a motion under West Virginia Code 6-9A-4 personnel that we go into executive session. Time is 7:44.
Second.
Who wants that one? Okay, motion by myself, seconded by Mr. McBride, that we go into executive session. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? The minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that we will go into executive session. The time is 7:44. All right, we're back from executive session. It ended at 8:25 PM. We're going to take no action on this item at this time, and we're going to reach out for further guidance on this item. So we'll leave this on the agenda for the next meeting. All right, H, discussion of possible action to amend a previous motion and vote regarding $300 employee incentive. That was done on June 13th, 2023, and approved by the board. So, Ms. McClung reached out to me about this, and I'm going to let her explain it to you all, as she can probably do a better job than I can.
So this was something that was discussed during like probably the first month I was hired. And it was my understanding that like a survey had went out the prior year, and this was what the results of that survey was. Again, while we were at training, we had learned that you can't give flat out amounts to everybody in the county. The only thing that you're allowed, that the state allows a board to do is, if you have funding, you can change the pay schedule for everybody, or you can do incentives. So just a flat stipend is not legally allowed by the state. So we were told that if that had been passed and it hadn't been paid yet, not to pay it. So that's where we're at. I brought that back to Mr. Angel the second I found out. And we haven't paid it yet. The plan was to pay it during May, but we hadn't paid it at the point we found out that we weren't supposed to do that. So county boards do have, you can do incentives, but at this point in the year, my hesitation would be, an incentive is something you should know about ahead of time to have something to work towards. And also, once you do an incentive, I'm not sure the legality behind taking it back away, because Summers County already gives more of an attendance incentive than most of the counties in the state. And I'm just not sure how adding more to that would work legally long-term.
Thank you for this information.
Yeah.
I'm aware of that.
And that was something we were not aware of either. It's one of those areas that isn't really specifically addressed in code, but it's not in code that is allowable either. So it's one of those where it doesn't say you can, I guess you can't kind of situation. So that's all I really know about it, to be honest.
So Greg, from the record, probably ought to say what she just said, and you just found out that that is not legally permitted.
So based on the information, and I'm just going to state this again for the record, Ms. McClung has been to a recent training, and at that state level training, they indicated that we cannot give a straight stipend. We can give incentive awards, but individuals need to know what that incentive is in advance before that's given. And right now, historically, Summers County is giving out more incentives than most counties. Did I state it all correctly? Did I leave anything out?
We had already approved that,
Yeah.
it was to be been paid in May, but
Yeah, that was approved to be paid in May prior to the knowledge of the information that Ms. McClung gained at the training she went to.
So what action needs to be taken?
So we need to make a motion to
Rescind that motion.
rescind that.
Can you rescind it after that long?
Well, we can get guidance on that.
Since you're gonna be talking to him more, you might as well do that.
Okay. So, yeah, let's leave this on the agenda and we'll handle this at the next meeting and we'll get, since we're reaching out for guidance on another issue, we can get guidance on this as well. All right, new business, approved purchases over $25,000. This is for foundations, all elementary schools with Wilson language. Is this something we've used in the past, foundations?
Yes.
So this is somewhat of a recurring,
It's
Expense.
reoccurring and it's some additional kits
Mhm.
that they now have that they didn't have last year.
okay. I'll make a motion, we approve the, purchase over 25,000 for foundations.
Second.
Motion by myself, seconded by Mr. McBride to approve the purchase over 25,000 for foundations. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the purchase over 25,000 for foundations has been approved. New business, item B, discussion of possible action to approve summer employment. We have before us Ms. Kathy Duffield, agricultural education activities and Summers County Comprehensive High School greenhouse operation. And also Daniel Yost, extend his contract 15 days to complete middle school edition technology.
I make a motion that we approve the, summer employment for, Ms. Duffield and Mr. Hughes.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mrs. Farley, seconded by Mr. McBride to approve the summer employment for Ms. Duffield and Mr. Yost. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the summer employment for Ms. Duffield and Mr. Yost have been approved. Item C, discussion or possible action to approve trip chaperone. And this is Gavin Pavant, Summers County Comprehensive High School girls basketball to Emory and Henry College.
Make a motion that we approve the chaperone.
Second.
A motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. Brogan to approve the Gavin Pavant as a chaperone for the girls basketball. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that Gavin Pavant has been approved as a chaperone for the girls basketball. Item D, discussion or possible action to approve out-of-state overnight trips. The first one we have is for Summers County Comprehensive High School, Kathy Duffield, July 10th through the 13th, Cedar Lakes Conference Center, Ripley, West Virginia. And then we have Dr. Kevin Green, Andrea Richmond, and Samantha Jones for a Gear Up Conference in Washington, D.C., July 21 through 24.
I'll make a motion, we approve the out-of-state overnight trips.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mrs. Farley to approve the out-of-state overnight trips. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Aye. Let the record reflect by a 4-0 vote with myself abstaining, the overnight trips have been approved. Discussion or possible action to approve summer hours for central office and bus garage. That would be June 17th through July 31 from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m.
I make a motion that we approve the summer hours for the central office and bus garage.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Farley, seconded by Mrs. Harvey to approve the summer hours for central office and the bus garage. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? If the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that the summer hours for central office and the bus garage have been approved. Discussion, excuse me. Discussion or possible action to approve Douglas Cook, PT for 24-25 school year.
Is this taking place in Christie? Is that what that is? Physical therapy?
I gotta pull it up. I thought it was physical.
I just know Christie's been,
This is.
Yeah.
I think it's required.
I'm just trying to find his contract, sorry. Y'all,
This is the same guy, he's already.
yeah,
Yeah. Sorry, Jenny, I was looking it up. Yeah.
It's in addition to.
Is this in
It says in
addition to?
addition to.
I think the Dr. Long presented, it was, to pick up any, overages that the, could cover.
I'll make a motion that we approve Douglas Cook physical therapy for 24-25.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Brogan, seconded by Mrs. Harvey to approve Douglas Crook for 24-25 school year. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining. Let the minutes reflect by a 5-0 vote that Mr. Douglas Crook has been approved for 24-25 school year. Personnel, we have before us resignations and retirements. We have professional transfers for the 24-25 school term. We have service personnel. Summer professional, summer service, summer substitute service, and summer substitute teachers. And these have all been posted for the required amount of time.
We have Amy Weichel written in for.
This is. Rich. Thank you. Oh, you. Okay. Yeah.
Since this name wasn't.
Are you related?
Yes.
I just told you stuff. All right. Any questions? Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we accept the recommendations for personnel.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Harvey, seconded by Mr. Brogan, that we accept the superintendent's recommendation for personnel. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Let the record reflect by a 4-0 vote with Mr. McBride abstaining that the superintendent's recommendations for personnel have been approved. Item 13, superintendent report.
It's been a long evening, so I'm gonna do something here. I'm just gonna yield my time to Ms. McCollum because she said I can do this because she's done. I asked her to do something for me. There was some people who contacted our office to say, can you please check out the football funds? And so, I had her do an audit and go through our funds, and I wanted her to give you an update on her audit and her, stuff that she's, I guess, found or didn't find. We'll just leave it at that. So I'll let her go ahead and tell you about the football funds.
So it was brought to our attention that there was potentially a large amount of money missing from football funds. And we received a FOIA for some of that information. This responded, or our response to this was to audit the football funds. So myself and Kayla went through, they use School Funds Online to track all of their stuff. Prior to us discussing this with anybody at the school, we went through all of the records in School Funds Online to see if there were any red flags. And there weren't any. I came down here to the school, actually checked some of the fundraiser stuff. Everything that has been turned in that we checked is correct. It's all up to date. The accusations are, though, that it was taken prior to making it to the school. And if it's cash that would be taken prior to the school, there wouldn't be any record of it here. So I do want to say that while, to my knowledge, nothing looks out of place, everything that we checked is too far. If there was cash that somebody collected and didn't report and turn in, unless somebody wants to go on the record and say that with the police, we don't have any record of any of that. So I did double check with the police department without any evidence. There's nothing really we can do. My only suggestion would be that, well, two suggestions. The one fundraiser that keeps coming into question is the one for the four-wheeler that it became a side-by-side for football because of the sheer amount of money that goes into that fundraiser. That fundraiser hasn't made profit in the last 2 years, so my suggestion would just be for next year, we just don't do that fundraiser. It lost money for 2 years in a row, so I don't know why you would continue that fundraiser in the first place, but my recommendation would just be not to accept that next year. And then also, I think this summer we need to have a working session, which we'd already talked about to review some of the policies anyways. I want to request that the fundraiser policy be put on there and us check to see. I think it can be strengthened some. We just need to come to the conclusion as to how it needs to be strengthened and what is still good for the schools to be able to fundraise in a way that's effective, but also us be able to regulate it a little bit more. So there was no findings. Everything that I have access to, everything that has made it to the school is all done. So that's about all I can say on that.
Thank you.
I do appreciate your suggestions there.
Yeah.
But Chad can definitely vouch for this, and I was the head fundraiser for volleyball for 12 years. More regulations can sure
See, and that's
cause
my-
an issue. We just need to be
that's my
careful. We just need to be
hesitation. I don't
careful.
want anything to hurt because our students rely so much on community support. I don't want to make it into a way that we don't have this community support. If some of the suggestions were to go cashless, I don't think that is good for any of our students because I don't think you're going to get the same donations at fundraising that you would having cash. I mean, selling a 50-50 chance is a really easy way to make money. Nobody's gonna buy that if you have to swipe a card.
Right.
I mean, I'm not gonna say nobody, some people probably would, but it's just not going to be the same type of fundraising. So I don't think our answer is to go cashless. I think our answer might just be to require whoever's in charge of the fundraiser to turn in a profit and loss report within 30 days, or, you know, just some kind of more accounting that we have access to sooner rather than the end of the year when the secretary closes out the year. So that's something we can discuss when we look at the policy.
Okay. Thank you.
No, I guess
Okay.
if anybody wants to after the meeting, I know it's been late, but I'll be glad to walk people through the new middle school edition, because there's been a lot. And, there's, the cabinetry's been added to the STEM lab. It's actually starting to look like a school, so if you guys want to check it out afterwards, I won't charge you 5 cents, you know.
Make sure your cell phone's
It's-
charged
it's
so we have a
free,
light.
it's fine.
All right, item 14, point of privilege. Ms. Harvey?
Well, I guess I would just like to say congratulations to everybody that made it through another school year. And that I just hope that everybody has a happy, safe summer. And thank you to all the teachers, to all the, reiterate losing, or Mr. Cochran's, public comment. You know, thank you to all the teachers, the secretaries, the cooks, the janitors, the bus drivers, the central office staff, the specialists. Thank you, thank you all for everybody and anybody that I missed, the aides, for getting through another year.
Thank you. Mrs. Farley?
So I was just thinking, you know, the kids always receive awards at the end of the school year. And, you know, parents come to the award assemblies and so forth. And I wish so much that, we could all have, staff and teacher superlatives like they used to do back in high school, you know, like best dress and so forth. So if we could ever do that, I came up with some fun ones that you all could vote on sometime. So we would vote on biggest apple polisher, most likely to be tardy. Now this is like teachers, this is grown-ups we'd be voting on. So I'm sure some of these people will pop into your mind. Most dependable, always the early bird, biggest bookworm, biggest inspiration, best vehicle, hands down, life of the party, most school spirit, biggest prankster, best shoulder to cry on, most likely to bring snacks, and most likely to survive the Hunger Games. So maybe someday we can vote on all the grown-up superlatives to end out the school year. Thank you all so much for such a great school year. We appreciate you.
Thank you. Mr. Brogan?
Ditto what Megan said, but very thankful for, I'm not gonna name the categories. I told her she was a brave soul, because I definitely wouldn't miss somebody, but this whole staff is just very appreciated. Everybody seems to work well together, and we're getting closer to accomplishing the goal, which is student achievement. One other thing I want to mention is we had a really nice giving group of people that did a fundraiser for one of our bus drivers. And I just want to call attention to that. I thought that was very commendable for you guys, whoever was involved with that, to raise money for Roger Bennett. And wasn't it like $4,000 you guys came up with? That's
good. The bus garage, that was all their idea.
yeah,
That was
that's
the bus garage. They pulled together and that was all
I
their.
think it's very commendable and very thankful for that. We've got that kind of people working for us that's willing to go that extra mile to help somebody.
Mr. McBride?
Oh, I just want to, first of all, again, thank all of our staff, from the board office to all of our professional staff, our service personnel. Uh, They all do a great job. And I'd like to say congratulations to all our graduates this year. I wasn't able to attend graduation down here, but our seniors who are moving on, and our eighth graders who moved up to the ninth grade, and our fifth graders who are moving up to the middle school, which I hope will be finished by the time they move up. But it's eventually going to, yeah, it's going to be there. So congratulations to all of them.
Thank you, Mr. McBride. Obviously, we're on the same page tonight, so I can't really say much more. I'm gonna ask Denise to put my name at the top of the list next meeting, so I can steal all of your all's thoughts and ideas. But, I do want to thank everyone for a good school year. I know a lot of effort goes into it. I mean, you had to deal with some of my kids, so you have my sympathy and my understanding.
Well, we got rid of one.
You got rid of one, that's right. Now I have him more, so, thanks, I think. But, we do have a lot of people that are leaving us, for other jobs. Through this year, we have lost some good employees. We wish you all the best. We thank you for your support, and if we can ever do anything to help you all, feel free to reach out to us. And as Mr. Brogan indicated, this community, we may not be able to offer as much as other schools can, but we can offer a community that other communities can't offer, even though they're called communities. And not, we have a fundraiser for a bus driver. We have people who donate for different events, different sports and activities. And, that's just something that you can't replace in a bigger school system. So, thank you to the staff, but thank you to our community for supporting us, and we appreciate everyone. With that, we'll go to item 15, discussion of next agenda. We do need to have a special meeting, so would be on Monday. Does that give you time to get it out?
Yeah, I was looking at it. The date is, that's June 3rd, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we put tomorrow's special board meeting, June 3rd, we could do it by phone, and I only need 3 board members because due to the quick turnaround and not knowing exactly where the archery competition and all that information, we couldn't just put it on tonight's board meeting because that wouldn't be posted properly. So we need to post an overnight out-of-state trip to, Florida for our archery, competition for the national, one down in the Daytona, area, I believe. So, we can put that on a board agenda for a special meeting on Monday. If you guys want to just do a phone in with 3 of you, save money, that's fine. We just need to make sure we approve it. We couldn't put it on tonight's board meeting, so I didn't want people to think, why just go ahead and put it on there, because we didn't properly put that out there, so we weren't sure of the dates and what state and what night, so, we can put that out tomorrow for Monday's meeting. You guys just need to tell me a time that works.
Okay. I have
If
a
you want to
preference
think
on the
about it
time.
tonight, that's fine. I
Yeah.
just need to get it put out by 4 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay, all right. And also, for the next agenda, we did get the results back from the survey. And Panorama, the lady from Panorama indicated that she would work with us on a presentation on how to present the results, and then what we can take away from those results. So I would like to put that on the first meeting in June, and we'll just have a discussion on those. And then let's go ahead and on the next meeting, first meeting in June as well, let's put on there discussion for a summer work session. And let's at the next meeting, let's set a date for a summer work session.
I guess we could possibly wait for the summer work session to talk about this. Or we need to put trying to get rid of the middle school back on an agenda very soon.
That's fine.
Yeah, I think the work session would be good for that. And I think that maybe we have a little discussion about the building behind the Lincoln School that we own as well. See what we can do with that is.
Okay.
Yep. Great. Any other items for the next agenda? Mr. McBride, you're on.
All right. I make a motion with adjourn, time is 8:54.